CISO Alliances is running a Alliances project in conjunction with our sponsor for this project, Trustwave, and it's called Risk, Resilience and Reputation, CISO and the board, where we're going to be exploring the relationship between the CISO and corporate governance in relation to risk, resilience and reputation. And today we've got Nick, who is joining us, Nick Jones from EasyJet, and supporting me with this from Trustwave is Jodie, who is head of marketing for Trustwave in EMEA. Nick, if I can pass it over to you just to give us a quick intro into yourself, so everyone can know who's speaking, that'd be great.
Cool. Thanks, James. Yeah, Nick Jones. As you say, I'm actually contracting at EasyJet at the moment. I'm doing an identity and access management strategy. I was the CISO at TUI Travel before that. Finished that in November last year, and so yeah, looking forward to joining you on this.
Ask, does your organization have a cybersecurity director on the board? And if so, what is their role within that board?
Yeah, so at neither EasyJet nor TUI did we have a director on the board per se, but both had links into the board, so reporting relationships into the board, so either the risk oversight committee or the audit committee. So strong links, but no permanent member on that board.
Is how prepared is your organization for a data breach, and is the board engaged in these discussions? And then on top of that is, if they are, what is their involvement in that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure that anybody's really prepared for a data breach. So yeah, do we have defenses? Are we doing many things to try and avoid that? Absolutely. Do we have response procedures for that? Absolutely. But are you really prepared for it? I don't think you are. I don't think it's something that anybody wishes to go through. So making sure that we avoid that is definitely high on the agenda. I think the boards these days are very aware of the risk to that. The public record that EasyJet was breached a while back, and just so much in the press around that. I think all boards are more aware than they were 2 or 3 years ago.
Brilliant.
So Nick, that's quite interesting. You're saying that about what happened a little while ago, and so how is the cyber program measured by the board? Sure.
So both of my last two organizations, we used NIST maturity to measure that, and I think the good thing about that is it gives you quite a broad measure. So it makes you think about quite a broad topic set in order to kind of assess how well prepared you are or how good your controls are. So that is the primary measure.
From a CISO's perspective, what are the challenges the CISO faces when trying to communicate the value of the cybersecurity investment? And this would be looking at, for example, existing and also new investment.
Yeah, sure. So I think often cybersecurity is seen as a cost and not a benefit, and it's quite difficult to translate how strong are your controls into what benefit are you actually getting from that. I think the other thing that hinders that is the volume. We talked about the volume of breaches that is occurring. So the likelihood of a breach occurring is always fairly high. And that's certainly been a conversation with the Risk Oversight Committee is the likelihood of these events occurring is going up, not because we're not doing as much to mitigate that, but because the external environment is changing. So with that in mind, I think it is quite difficult to justify value. Having said that, I think there's a recognition that because that likelihood is going up, and because there are good metrics around what a breach would cost. I think that's probably the bigger driver than being able to communicate value. I think that's a struggle that all CISOs have, and we talk about it. It's difficult to talk about. Risk reduction is fairly easy, but translating that into real business benefit is sometimes more tricky.
How do you educate board members in cyber risks and threats? Because I think that's such a topical thing at the minute, and everyone's going to have different opinions in different ways. So it'd be good to sort of understand what your personal way of doing that is, and what's worked for you.
I think one of the best things to do is to have one-on-one conversations outside of the boardroom with those individuals, and to be able to talk to them in basic English rather than in any technical jargon. So keep it really simple and keep it really personal. Would be the two things that I use. I was describing Active Directory and what it does, and I said it's a bit like your heart. And if your heart is unhealthy and the pacemaker is old, the risk of having a heart attack is much higher. So what we need to do is actually work on getting that heart back into the right shape. That's something that people can understand, and they can kind of go, I can relate that to me personally, and therefore I understand that. I talked to the TUI board about the Log4j incident, and I said it's a bit like we arrived on the high street one day and all the shop doors were open, and people could just walk in and take what they liked. That's a 0-day vulnerability. It's something that yesterday it wasn't there, today it is there, and it was a pretty high severity. So that was something that they could understand and kind of go, okay, right, we get what you're talking about. What is it that you want us to help you to do? I said, well, we need to lock the door again, so I need you to help us do that. And then that's keeping it really simple, but keeping it personal, I think is what I would advocate, and doing it one-on-one wherever you can, so that they get to know you and they get to start to trust you and they get to understand what it is that your team is doing, rather than that short kind of however long you get, 20 minutes to pitch for a new investment. It's quite a different environment when you have it one-to-one.
What about the metrics to enable a comprehensive overview of your organization's security posture? And if you could only show 3, what 3 would you share?
Yeah, I mean, I think using a framework like NIST is probably the best way to do it, and then you can focus in on the elements that are most important, or the elements that you're working on. So that might be because you've got a lower score in that area, and therefore you're doing this program of work, and therefore you're asking for this investment. I think that's always really important. The other thing I think is around quantifying the risk, right? What is the impact and likelihood, and how do you actually quantify that using some industry data, using maybe an insurable event, for instance. I've used that in the past, but I think quantifying that risk really helps, because that focuses the mind, and then you can get into, right, we're measuring our maturity like this is where we're weak, and this is why we're asking for that money over there. I would say those are probably the 2 ways that I would run that conversation.
One of my favorite questions, and it's always about lessons learned and going back in time. So if you're starting over as a new CISO, what lessons would you share with your younger self?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not sure if I was younger that I would advocate somebody running into this role, right? I actually think this is a role you want to do slightly later in your career, when you've got a few more scars. I think it is a role that you very much, you find yourself in difficult positions, you find yourself running group crises, and I think a little bit of experience is useful in that. I'd also say making sure that you've got the right reporting line to a point, but more importantly, the right relationships in the business, and you've got that real senior stakeholder support, and building that senior stakeholder support. If you don't have that, the role is not tenable. And so I think that also is where I think the experience comes in of working in different organizations, working with different cultures, and really being able to understand what works within the culture of your organization and how to deal with that, because you're going to have to stand up and be counted, and so understanding how you keep that support, how you build that, I think is really important. So those would be the things that I think I would advocate.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. I really appreciate that. That is all of our questions for today. Just a quick fire sort of 10-15 minutes there.
No worries.
And thank you, Jodie, for being my sidekick for the morning. I think that's great information. What we'll do is obviously, if anyone's listening to this, feel free to share your thoughts as well on obviously what Nick's given us and your personal opinions. But thank you, Nick. I really appreciate the time.
No worries.
And you, Jodie, as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.